ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for Tea Time Wagers with Brady Kannon. This week at the Charles Schwab. Hats off to Mr. Kannon. I told you, and I told everyone that was listening, we had a big crowd last week that Brady was going to get one pre-flop. He's had so many near misses, second and third places, a lot of in-game winners this year, if you follow him on the sports grid over the weekends. But this tournament, I tell you what, we were just talking backstage, and if anyone deserved it, it was XANDER. I mean, it was a four-way battle on Sunday. I just saw the viewership for the back nine. It was almost at 5 million viewers. So hats off to the PGA. Great major. And it was kind of comical, of course, and Brady will attest to this one. Social media and the naysayers. Oh my God, is this a Muni course? Oh my God, what a pitch and putt. You know, that minus 21, where are we at the Heritage? Blah, 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 blah. The same people will be bitching, yelling, screaming, and moaning when at the U.S. Open, there's 5 people under par and everyone else is plus double digits. So you can't win them all, but XANDER did. Shout out to Brady and the ECSI VIP'S, which we peppered the board. It was an amazing. We're 2 for 2 in the majors now, but that's old news. Now we're talking to Charles Schwab. So shout out to our proud sponsor and partnership, of course, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded the app, head on over to Google Play. Travis, Zach, and the rest of this amazing team and community will take good care of you. So the true star of the show, the one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, great to be with you again. Yes, off of a big win, a breakthrough win last week. Boy, it's been a while. I was so glad to cash that ticket last week. And you're right. I mean, I was in a position there at the end where, you know, it didn't really matter. We had Bryson DeChambeau and Xander Schauffele. Of course, we had Colin Morikawa as well. You know, it was a great tournament for us, and that makes it very interesting. 2 years in a row, Jeff, if you recall, at the PGA Championship, where we had the market cornered. Last year at the PGA, I had Brooks Koepka and Victor Hovland, who were both in the final pairing. So maybe the PGA is my jam. I don't know, but I was sure. And you and I talked about it, as you alluded to. I had Bryson and Xander there at the very end. And when we got to the 72nd hole, even the 71st hole, it was only going to be one of those two players. But yes, I was wholeheartedly rooting for Xander, because had he lost, that would have just been excruciatingly painful, I believe, for the man who's had so many close calls. And of course, a couple this particular season in big events, in the Wells Fargo the week prior, and the Players Championship. And Bryson has started to grow on me a little bit. I think he's maturing. He's becoming a more likable guy, but still, I didn't really want him to win it. I did really want Xander to win it. And, you know, that last putt rattles around and I jumped off the couch. And, you know, I thought it was fitting that Bryson DeChambeau saw the finish from the practice tee where he was warming up for a potential playoff, and the monitor over there, you know, overlooking the practice tee, a big screen monitor, and he saw the final putt fall and he knew he was done. And the name of the 18th hole is Photo Finish. I thought that was appropriate as well. So, yeah, that was a ton of fun. And, you know, you make a great point there. A lot of people moaning and groaning about, you know, 21 under par, and, you know, the course is kind of vanilla, you know, doesn't take a whole lot of creativity. You know, I understand some of those comments and everything. The fact of the matter is, it's been 4 majors, 4 PGA championships in a row now where this golf course has produced incredibly dramatic finishes. And that's great. That's what's fantastic to see. I don't care really what the score is or this and that and the other. It's been incredible theater that Valhalla has been able to produce. I also saw a very reputable statistical website that follows and tracks golf and strokes gained and all that stuff. Said, despite what everybody's saying out there, this course actually separated the men from the boys more so than any other tournament yet this year, by like a quarter of a stroke. I guess one stroke is kind of typical, and this was 1.25 strokes where this separated the men from the boys. And I can get deeper into that exact description. But the point was that this course, did a better job and was more difficult than it may have looked on the surface, and than a lot of people thought.
So many things, so many angles. I mean, we could just talk for an hour and recapping the weekend. First and foremost, hats off to Scottie Scheffler. What he has been through, wins the Masters, wins the following week, takes a few weeks off, has a son, and then comes out and has a good first round, gets arrested.
How about eagling the first hole? How about holding out on his first approach shot since returning to action? That was unbelievable.
Almost scripted, Hollywood scripted.
Yeah, right.
And then he gets arrested, and then he goes out and shoots a -5. And I just said in my alert, I was like, he's not human. But sooner or later, it's got to catch up.
He was the next day. He was human the next day.
Exactly. And then as the tournament progressed, I'm going to tell you what, if you were watching on Saturday as Lowry was going for real history with a shot at 61, Lowry, who was light years ahead of Xander on Saturday playing, sinks a putt to tie Xander, and the commentator goes, "Oh, now we got a co-leader. Mr. Lowry is now tied." I think it was at 13 under, and Xander was 4 or 5 holes behind him, and obviously didn't know what was going on. But Xander had like a 22-footer and just got up and just drained it. And right there, I said to myself, "He's the winner. He's going to win."
Yeah. He had some such nervous chip shots from around the green where he hit it to a foot. I mean, he had a shot out of a bunker early in the round on Sunday where he hit it to less than a foot. He just nailed it in all categories. I think he was third for strokes gained off the tee. He was maybe second or fourth or fifth or something like that for strokes gained approach. He was 19th in strokes gained putting. He was number 1 in greens and regulation. I think it was greens and regulation and approach. He might have been number 1. Anyway, the point is he was good in all areas. And the other thing is he's been that good all season. I think sometimes people have to realize that, sometimes it's hard to win. It's extremely hard to win. And when Rory McIlroy puts up what was basically a 63 to beat you at the Wells Fargo, and Scottie puts up a 64, it's pretty hard to overcome. And I said it all week on your show and on Sports Grid. It's not like Xander threw up all over himself. He didn't blow it. The other guys won it. And the way he's played this year, I think a lot of people would or can make a good case for the fact that he is the second best player in the world. And back to Scottie for a second, by the way, the best player in the world, through all that he went through last week, guy ends up finishing 8th. Shot 3 out of the 4 rounds at 67 or better and finished 8th in all of that. He is truly incredible. And it's now up at golfbet.com, a part of the PGA Tour.com website there. My article called The Prop Farm. We talked about, Scottie's episode with the arrest and whatnot. I know it was true for my wife. He really it was a merge of reality TV and a major golf championship. He brought a lot of casual observers into the forefront who were like, "Oh my God, my wife was, what's going on with Scottie Scheffler?" She's never mentioned the name Scottie Scheffler in her life. She's texting me going, "Tell me all about this Scottie Scheffler stuff. What's going on?" So, and then she's watching with me over the weekend going, she was all in, seeing what Scheffler would do. And my question to the bookmakers in that article was, have you seen an uptick in action from casual bettors? Because Scottie gained a lot of fans. I mean, you saw the folks out at Valhalla. They had T-shirts immediately. They were all in and backing this guy who, in their minds got crossed by the law. So pretty cool. I think Scottie's going to come out a shining hero, it seems, out of all of this.
Yeah, the memes on social media, one of them, I was just hilarious. Driving a golf cart and there's the police chasing them like in the OJ. The T-shirts, one's got the orange bandana and one's got the orange jumpsuit. It was priceless. And going back to Sunday, flashes. Hovland, we had a pre-flop of 47-1, took a one-shot lead, and I'm like, and I had a bunch of people like jumping out of their seats, and again, I just thought it was Xander's to win, as we talked about backstage last week. As you just stated, Rory won that last 2 weeks ago's tournament. Xander didn't lose it. Rory just had one of those Rory moments. And so the contrarian play, as you said on Sports Grid, and to me, was actually Xander Schauffele. Yep. No one was talking about him. And sure enough, great tournament. And lastly, before we jump into the Charles Schwab, I really felt for Morikawa, because he just had one of those days like I have every day where you're on the green, you're putting for birdie. You just couldn't make a putt. He had nothing in the flat stick. Yeah.
And what was, promising, and of course we'll get to it. I'm back on Morikawa this week. I'll tip my hand there, and we'll explain a little bit further, but a big part of why I've liked Morikawa recently, and a big part of his success, is the putter has really become a positive. He was incredible around the greens. His short game, his scrambling, his strokes gained around the green, his putting has really changed. It showed up at Augusta. He gained strokes on the field in his last 3 starts leading up to the PGA Championship, and he gained strokes with the putter in 2 out of the 4 rounds. Sunday, obviously, he lost strokes when, like you say, he didn't make a birdie. He didn't make anything other than a par until like the 15th hole when he made bogey, and didn't make a birdie until the 18th. So, but I'm not worried about that. It's a huge change for him in what he's been able to do with the putter. And you talk about one of the best iron players in the game, one of the most accurate drivers of the golf ball in the game, who now has found a putting stroke. He's become very, very dangerous.
So I talk about this all the time, the week before a major and a week after the major. I'm looking at the tote board right now. I got about 5 sports books up. The highest you can get Scottie Scheffler is at plus 275. After that, Colin Morikawa at plus 1,200. Max Homa plus 2,000. Jordan Spieth plus 2,200. Tony Finau anywhere from 2,500 to plus 3,000. Harry English, who showed some flashes, right around that 3,000, 3,300. And Si-Woo Kim, anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 there. That's just a handful of the names there. Thoughts of the week after the major? I mean, if you can't get to Scottie at 4-5-1 at a major, 156 golfers. Now, I mean, the prohibitive favorite, real tough to get to him, at least pre-flop, Brady.
No doubt about it. And I did not land on Scottie this week. It was only 2 seasons ago that he lost in a playoff here to Sam Burns. So it's not like this guy is any stranger to playing well at Colonial in Fort Worth, Texas, not too far from his Dallas home. Jordan Spieth is just an absolute madman at this course. He's won it before. He's had 7 top 10 finishes, including 3 runner-up finishes. So these local Texas boys really know how to play Colonial Country Club. But I think this has to be somewhat of an exhale for Scottie after everything he went through last week. And I wouldn't be surprised at all. I would be surprised if he's not in the top 10 again. I mean, we saw what he did last week at a major after all that. But, sometimes I think about that when a team comes home after a long road trip, like in the game of baseball, or maybe in football after a couple, 3 games in a row on the road, an extended time on the road, almost in any sport. When you get home, you have responsibilities just like the rest of us. You got to pay your bills, and Scotty's got to, in this case, what are we doing with the kid? Where's the daycare? Everything going on in your normal life outside of your vocation is right there presented in front of you again. And you have to kind of get organized again. And then you take into account everything that Scottie went through the week before. And now, apparently there's some arraignments and whatnot, looming next month. And, so all of that is still going on. It feels like this is probably a little bit of a relief for Scottie. Like I say, to exhale a moment, be with his family, hug his wife, hug his new son. And the golf course is probably going to feel like an incredible sanctuary for him this week, near and dear to his hometown. But I don't know if he is going to have that step on your neck, I'm going to beat all of you, capability or mentality this week. And I, not knowing that, I didn't want to jump on him at, plus 250, plus 275, whatever. I think I've seen maybe a 3-1 out there. Tell you what I did do, though. I think he is the man next month at Pinehurst. Look out for Scottie Scheffler at Pinehurst for the U.S. Open. I did make that bet already at plus 450, and you might be able to find a little higher at plus 475.
And as before I turn the fairway over to you here, you talk about hometown, and you know what? I know he didn't win. I know he wasn't on the front page of the leaderboard. He showed some flashes, especially Saturday, and you could just see the pure emotion. I felt so good for Justin Thomas last weekend.
Yeah. He made good with his expectations. Obviously, he didn't win, but he had a great showing. He made some incredible shots. I mean, the chip in, I think it was on Saturday, was unbelievable. No, I thought he came out a real hero in front of the home crowd. He loves this championship. He's won it twice. And yeah, good for JT. He certainly did not fold like a cheap suit. He came out and had a real nice tournament.
Charles Schwab, again, Scottie Scheffler, the favorite, plus 275. The next closest guy, good. I was going to say friend and colleague, which Colin Morikawa is not, but I have been a part.
He's a neighbor of mine. He lives here in Las Vegas, not too far from me.
I've been a part of a couple of his major championships and some nice tickets. So I like to call him a friend. He's a good ECSI friend. But the stage is yours in your outrights for the Charles Schwabs, Brady.
Okay, very good. So, really a polar opposite, kind of similar to the Masters when we went to Harbor Town the next week. This week we go from big, bad, lengthy, driver-heavy Valhalla to a claustrophobic, tight U.S. Open-like course in Colonial Country Club, a classic. It's been on tour, the same course. Now, we've seen the tournament sponsor name change at this tournament a number of times, but the course has remained the same since 1946, and Colonial did actually host the U.S. Open in 1941. The late, great Ben Hogan won here 5 times. It is often referred to as Hogan's Alley. There's a statue of Hogan out in front of the property. By the way, that U.S. Open in 1941, Hogan finished 3rd. It does have narrow fairways, tree-lined fairways. They dogleg in both directions. The greens are very small, bent grass surfaces. And make a mental note of this. I was told by a friend a long time ago, and I think it's great advice that I repeat each and every year when we get to Colonial. Watch for guys that play well at this golf course and play well this week to do well in the U.S. Open. There are a lot of the same skill set requirements that cross over typically from Colonial to a U.S. Open setup. So file that away for when we hit Pinehurst here in mid-June next month. I looked at strokes gained approach, greens in regulation, driving accuracy, good drives gained, par 4 performance, par 4s measuring anywhere from 350 to 450 yards. Par 3 performance, which is something I don't look at that often, but every par 3 here is well over 190 yards. The 4 par 3s average 209 yards. So I looked at par 3s in length of 200 to 225. Scrambling will be important. You're going to miss some greens or you're going to miss greens in regulation around these small putting surfaces. Hole proximity from 100 yards to 175. And then bogey avoidance, because it's that tight claustrophobic track. Bogeys are going to be looming, and players that can avoid them, all the better for them. As far as the correlated courses, you want to look at those positional, accuracy-based, precision-type golf courses that we often see. YLA Country Club, home of the Sony Open. Sea Island, where they have the RSM Classic down in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Harbor Town, the RBC Heritage. Pebble Beach, wide fairways at Pebble Beach, which is dissimilar, but very small greens, the smallest greens on tour at Pebble. TPC Southwind, where they play the FedEx St. Jude in Memphis. Austin Country Club, also in nearby Austin, Texas, where they used to play the Dell Match Play. And then Innisbrook, right outside of Tampa, Florida, where they play the Valspar Championship. So we go from these big boy Oak Hill, Quail Hollow, Valhalla courses to these much smaller, tighter tracks. And when in terms of what we're looking for as far as a player and a skill set this week. And, that firmly lands me on Colin Morikawa. Even though I was on him last week and we cashed a nice top 20 finish with him there, he is, tops in the world in driving accuracy. We know what kind of iron player he is. And I mentioned this a little earlier in the program. All of a sudden the short game has become a real weapon. He's finished runner up here before. He's finished 14th here before. He's finished top 10 at TPC Southwind, Harbor Town, and YLA. And he is number one in this field over the last 24 rounds for fairways gained off the tee. You've got the accuracy, the iron play, and the short game, a pretty darn good formula for the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial. Then I went to Denny McCarthy at 50-1. He missed the cut last week at the PGA Championship at Valhalla, and it may have been a little bit too much for him to bite off, playing two very long driver-heavy golf courses 2 weeks in a row. He fared extremely well at the Wells Fargo and finished sixth, but he's one of the shortest hitters on the PGA Tour in terms of driving distance. So to have that type of setup 2 weeks in a row may have been a bit much, but he did finish sixth at the Wells Fargo. And last week he won in the Lone Star State, or I shouldn't say won. He lost in a playoff in the Lone Star State at the Valero Texas Open. So I'm not concerned about the form for Denny McCarthy just because he missed the cut last week. McCarthy is number one in this field for strokes gained putting on bent grass. He is, now we've got that shorter, more positional track. What I think is incredibly better for his game. He is second in scrambling in this field over the last 24 rounds, second in bogey avoidance, and 12th on those par threes that measure 200 to 225 yards. Top 10 finishes at Sea Island, Pebble Beach, and Innisbrook. Top 20 finishes at Harbor Town, Southwind. And like I say, also number one in this field for strokes gained putting on bent grass. Then I went to another 50-1 shot. And Jeff, we can discuss this when you return here, but that odds board, it goes from Scottie at, 2.5 or 3-1 to a couple guys in the 20s or so. And then all of a sudden, everybody's at like 50. There's a massive jump. And I'm on everybody besides Morikawa I've got in the 50s, including Christian Bezuidenhout, the South African. He also missed the cut last week at Valhalla. He is also more built for a shorter positional accuracy-based track. And that shows in some of the results, despite a 16th place finish a couple weeks ago at the Wells Fargo. He's also finished 9th at the Valspar and 13th at Sawgrass at the Players Championship this season. He's been top 15 here at Colonial in the past, has top 20 finishes at YLA, Harbor Town, Pebble Beach, and TPC Southwind. Over the last 24 rounds, he is number one in this field for hole proximity from 100 to 125 yards. He's second in scrambling, third in bogey avoidance, and sixth on the par fours that measure between 350 and 400 yards. Then to Andrew Putnam at 55-1. He was actually 53rd at the PGA Championship last week, and not too shabby considering the type of game that he has. It is no surprise last week that he finished 73rd. That's close to dead last, 73rd in the field in driving distance. But again, now we have a totally different golf course that I think is a much better setup for him, where he, by the way, in the past has finished 15th, 20th, and 3rd here at Colonial. Now, last week, he gained nearly 3 strokes around the green at Valhalla and nearly 2.5 strokes putting. Those are a couple of the areas of strength in his game, and they perfectly fit into the mold here at Colonial. He has 3 top 10 finishes at the Sony Open, 2 at TPC Southwind, and another top 10 at Pebble Beach. And then finally, the Florida Gator, Mr. Billy Horschel at 55-1. He just won a month ago at the Corrales Punta Cana Championship. And late night, sitting there in bed on Wednesday before they teed off at the PGA, I added him for a top 20 finish. I just felt that this guy had something in the tank, I should say, the current form. He ended up finishing 8th, shot a really low round. I think he shot like 64 on Sunday at Valhalla. The form is just really out of this world right now for Billy Horschel. He's a machine on the correlated courses, the Sony, the Harbor Town, Sea Island. He's done well, top 10, top 20 at all of them. The last 24 rounds, he's 14th in this field for good drives gained, and he's 8th in bogey avoidance. So Billy Horschel at 55, Andrew Putnam at 55, Christian Bezadenhout and Denny McCarthy at 50, and then Colin Morikawa at 12-1 for a 5-pack of outright winners this week, which I also played for a top 20 finish.
When you were breaking down Denny McCarthy, as you were breaking him down, a name popped up in my head. I was I thought initially you were going there, and I'm looking, he's 35-1. Before we get to your head-to-heads, what is your thoughts on Brian Harman this week?
Yeah. One thing I know for sure is I think he's been popular, and I don't always like that. I know at BetMGM, I believe I want to say he was the second most popular pick to Scottie Scheffler this week at BetMGM. Enough said, right? And now that being said, Colin Morikawa is also extremely popular this week. But I believe by both sharp players and recreational players. Scottie Scheffler has like 30% of the handle at BetMGM this week to win the tournament. Now, Colin Morikawa is the second most popular, but it's only like 9%. So the gap between Colin and Scottie is pretty large. But Harman, he makes all the sense. Short game, accuracy. I just didn't land on him. And it wasn't because I knew that he was really popular or anything like that. I just go over what my numbers kind of tell me after having been, in the golf handicapping business, Jeff, for 30 years. There's gut feeling, and there's knowledge of horses for courses and which courses play into which type of players and stuff like that. And who's kind of running hot at the moment, who's contrarian. There's so much that goes into this type of thing. But Harman really didn't cross my mind. All that being said, of course, his skill set makes sense for this property.
Well, I will tell you, one of our 2 simulators loves Denny McCarthy. So
good.
So there you go. So we're all set there. Any head-to-heads this week?
I have one, and it involves our man, Denny McCarthy. I took him at -125 over Keegan Bradley. And Keegan Bradley is a pretty versatile player where he can bomb it with the big boys. He just finished 18th last week at the PGA Championship. He's won a PGA Championship. He's always been great in total driving. He's always been a great ball striker. He's typically never been a great putter. His putting has improved quite a bit in the last 5 years or so. But the short game has never truly been his area of expertise, where it really is for McCarthy. And I think there could be an overreaction with McCarthy missing the cut last week. I mean, you put a guy like Denny McCarthy on Quail Hollow and Valhalla 2 weeks in a row. That's a lot to ask. And he finished 6th at Quail Hollow. But, asking a guy to drive it that far and be put behind the 8 ball with long irons 2 weeks in a row is very, very difficult, no matter who you are, if you just don't hit it up there with the big boys. But Denny, like I said, I'm not worried about the form. It was just last month that he, went down to the wire with Akshay Bhatia at the Valero Texas Open. This guy's been in a playoff with Victor Hovland at the Memorial. He is really, I think, on the verge of winning his first tour event, and it's probably going to come at a shorter, more accuracy-based positional golf course like we have this week. Here's another key factor. And this could all blow up in our face because we're talking about weather. I don't know if it's going to be the case or not, but the forecast is pretty nasty. They're supposed to have thunderstorms going on today in the Fort Worth area, possibly on Thursday, maybe even into Friday. I don't know if we'll see stoppages of play. Hopefully not, but probably some rain, probably some moisture, and certainly some wind. We're seeing wind really consistently anywhere from 10 to 20 miles in the forecast, which, could mean 25 miles an hour as far as gusts, or who knows. And if you look at the draw, it looks like the guys that go out early on Thursday and late on Friday could have a bit of an advantage. Denny McCarthy goes early on Thursday and late on Friday, and Bradley is the opposite. Late Thursday, early Friday, where, again, if what the forecast is telling us right now, he would be in the thick of the worst of the wind. So I think that's possibly an advantage for McCarthy as well.
Well, we're hoping for back-to-back wins here to really jumpstart us, grab some momentum as we got a few weeks, obviously, till the next major, the U.S. Open, which you've already said, grab a plus 475, might be able to sneak a 5-1 on Mr. Scheffler to bounce back and regain. Not that he's, by the way, 52 weeks he's been number one. So a full calendar year. I saw that earlier this week. So hats off.
He's only got about 300 weeks to catch Tiger.
Woods.
And he might. You never know.
The scroll has been going the whole time. Everyone here knows where they can find you, obviously, on X at Las Vegas Golfer. You can grab all your work at Golf Bet. And, of course, we can find you later tonight on Sports Grid and throughout the weekend. But, again, I like to throw the ball back to you as we close this show out and tell everyone exactly where they can find all your work and your written work, Brady.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. You're too kind. I will be on Sports Grid with my buddy Joe Ranieri in a little less than 2 hours, about 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern. And then I'll be on again with my friend Gabe Morency at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And then, of course, you can catch me Sports Grid just about any day of the week. My own show is on Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight. Hopefully we'll have you on there a little later this summer to talk some baseball, Mr. Dawson. And then, of course, all my written work at golf.com. My tournament preview article is up there now at golf.com. And then, as you mentioned, the PGA Tour under Golf Bet. If you go to PGAtour.com, they have a heading there across the top on the menu called Golf Bet. Obviously, all my articles deal with betting from a betting perspective. And the Prop Farm article, which I produce every Wednesday, just went up not too long ago. Some good insights there from the bookmakers side of things, some of the bets that I'm on, some of the rationale, all that type of thing. And of course, you can stay updated on all this stuff, like you said, on Twitter at Las Vegas Golfer.
And make sure you tell Mr. Gabe Morency that was one hell of a series, hell of a season from the Canucks. And I tell you what, if you left after 2 periods and didn't see that third period, I thought for sure the Canucks were going to tie that game up and bring it to overtime.
I have really fallen in love with postseason hockey in probably the last 5 to 10 years. And I shouldn't say always, but at some point, either late in the regular season or before the playoffs, I'll make a couple of plays from each conference to win the conference. And I was that close, Jeff, to having the Final Four. I had futures tickets to win the conference on the New York Rangers, the Florida Panthers, the Dallas Stars, and the Vancouver Canucks. So for the Panthers-Rangers series, I will sit back and watch and cash a ticket no matter what happens. I almost had that set up with the Canucks getting all the way to Game 7 and then nearly tying it in the third period. But I did hedge a little bit with the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm going to sit back and enjoy hockey from here on out and not be too worried about the betting.
Yeah, twice a week, once on our channel and once on Fridays on Andrew McGinnis's channel, Wager Talk. We talk hockey, and you go back to late September, early October as we were doing our preseason. We nailed the Rangers and Carolina preflop for East and Cup, and out west we had the Avs, which obviously didn't get it done, but in early January, we nailed Dallas for the West and
Good
the
work.
Cup.
Probably a good number at that time.
Yes. And so what I did for the ECSI VIPs is to make sure we had the board covered is we have Panthers at plus 425 to win the cup. And then we also have the Oilers at plus 450 to win the cup. So we currently have the board covered as well. If we get a Rangers Dallas, that means we cash some conference finals and we have the cup winner. But just like you, we're going to sit back and have some fun.
It sounds like a trend here, Jeff. We had the same thing going at the PGA. We had the board covered. Let's keep it up, man.
We definitely will. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, one and only Mr. Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer. Go check him out, obviously, on Sports Grid. We're going to go for back-to-backs here. First, the PGA Championship, now the Charles Schwab. So, everyone, let's cash some tickets, and we will see everyone soon.